Good morning, everyone, and welcome into another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name is Hrabchak. As always, today I am joined by Lyss, Houde, and we've got a jam-packed show today. We're going to talk about the loss against Vegas 4-3 on Friday night on Black Friday, a little bit earlier, which was nice. 7:30 game in Vegas is welcome. Lots to come out of that game. Jets skated yesterday in Dallas. Some reaction from the practice as well. And then we're going to preview today's game against the Dallas Stars as the Jets wrap up a 6-game road trip. I'm actually going to have Gavin Spittle for a Stars perspective from the Spits and Suds podcast later on in the show as well. Super excited. Our first guest outside of Lyss and Jacob here. So super excited to have Gavin on. But before we get into all of that, Lyss, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's so fun when we start prepping for these shows and get ready for what we want to talk about for the upcoming week. And so much can happen in like a relatively uneventful 6.5 days, like there's just, I feel like there's so much to talk about, even though it was like it was just one of the weeks of all time, nothing too good, nothing too bad, just a bunch of stuff that happened. And there's so much to talk about.
There really is. And it's funny. The Jets get off to the best 15 game start in NHL history. Then they lose a few games and it's just kind of like you shrug your shoulders. Now it's kind of getting to the point where some of the people in chat today, some of the fans are getting like, okay, they're starting to lose. Like, let's end this. Let's end this. 3 out of their last 5. They're 3-5 in their last 8 is what I was getting at there.
Yeah, for the first time since, like the outside of the first like 3-4 games of the season, whatever, the Winnipeg Jets are tied for first in the league. The Minnesota Wild have the same amount of points now as the Winnipeg Jets, which is damn.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Just like that. They do have 4 loser points. And I don't know about you, Lyss, but I'm a big advocate for the 3-2-1 point system that the PWHL uses and Four Nations Faceoff is going to use.
Of course.
And this is just another way to another exhibit in the long argument for the 3-2-1 point system. But anyways, let's get into the show. The Jets on Friday dropping that one 4-3 to the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas scoring with, I want to say 4 minutes left to take the lead in that one off the rush. Scott O'Neill saying after the game that Vegas scored 3 rush goals. That's something that they didn't want. Vegas, a very good rush team. The Jets kind of got carved up in that aspect. Lyss, what was your initial takeaways from that game Friday night, a little bit earlier in Vegas, as I mentioned, 4-3 loss for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to put every single game the Jets have lost this year on some form of continuum or spectrum. And if I were to do that, this one doesn't fall in the same camp as the 5-0 loss against Florida or anything like that. It wasn't a bad game by all accounts, but I think it is really important to isolate, those exact sorts of plays that you didn't want to see happen. They happened and they were costly. So I'm glad that was something that was recognized by Scott O'Neill, because that's something that I bet you a lot of teams say about the Winnipeg Jets, right? And they give up Winnipeg Jets, 2 power play goals and 3 rush goals when the Jets score 5 against you in a game. That's what you don't want them to do, because that's what they want to do, right? So it was kind of like a little bit like looking in the mirror in this game, where it was a team that's really good off the rush, just like the Jets are, and they managed them pretty well in some scenarios and not so well in others, and big mistakes turned out to be costly.
Yeah, I was saying to you before we hopped on today, I thought the Jets played fine on Friday. A lot better, in my opinion, than the LA game, which, I mean, that's not saying much. They finished that game with 14 shots on goal. I think 3 shots in the third period. So there's a lot that went wrong on Wednesday night. But like Ian Wilson said, this is an insane road trip. Like I'm never usually the guy to, say time zones and travel, because to be honest, every team has to travel. Every team deals with the time zones jumping around. But when the Jets started this whole thing with a 3-game road trip, came back for 1 game against the Florida Panthers, and then hit the road for a 6-game road trip, That's like a 10-game road trip. And they're going to come back Tuesday night against the St. Louis Blues and then go on the road for 2 more. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, this is just like a 14-game road trip at this point. I and after all of that, it's against tough competition. Like, they're going up against Dallas today. They went up against Vegas. LA is in a playoff spot. They're playing well so far this year. Minnesota, who they beat, which was a huge win in the Central Division. So, given the circumstances, Lyss, as we kind of wrap up this 6-game road trip going into today, if the Jets are able to win today and at least beat, I mean, Nashville's so far behind them that I don't think that game at the end of the season is really going to bite the Jets in any way. But if after this insane road trip, the Jets were able to beat the Wild and the Stars of all of the teams, I think a lot of Jets fans would still take that, given those are 2 teams that they're probably going to be chasing in the standings all year long.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, leaving this little next stretch here going like 4-5 or 5-5, whatever sort of thing, like might be crazy hot take, best case scenario for the Winnipeg Jets, right? Because the last thing you want is for this team to keep eking out wins the same way that they won in, oh geez, why am I forgetting now? What was the Connor Hellebuyck game? The Connor Hellebuyck game. It was the Minnesota game, right? That
Yes,
he was
Minnesota
just
had
so
like
good.
44 shots on goal. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so, like, those games happen and they're great to sprinkle into the mix, whatever. But if you have those sorts of games too often, or, the other team is off or whatever, you don't learn about the problems that your team has, because this team has problems. So do 31 other teams in the NHL. Like, there's no two ways about it. So I think getting the points against the most important teams to get points against, and beating them cleanly in regulation as well to avoid that loser point scenario for someone in your division, I think is ideal for the Winnipeg Jets, because I think they definitely are aware of what they want to work on. Though I don't know how aware they are, because, there are some things that we've seen have been an issue for this entire road trip, Mark Scheifele, that we don't seem to be addressing here. So I don't really know. But at the same time, I think it's not a horrible situation for the Winnipeg Jets to be in, so long as they rectify some of these problems that they're addressing and that they have understood have been their downfall in these losses.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you hinted at Mark Scheifele there. I do want to say, I forgot to say it off the top of the show, but we are debuting a new segment here today on WST Sunday Live. We're not going to say what it is. It's going to happen later on in the show, but saying Mark Scheifele made me think of it, and people will understand later on when.
Of course, saying Mark Scheifele made you think of it. Of course he
did. When we bring up the segment. So, anyways, one player that played really well on Friday night, snapped a long goal drought, was Cole Peretti. The first goal went to the net. Josh Morrissey throws the puck on net. Peretti with a really nice deflection. And then the second goal is like a minor hockey coach's dream, because Josh Morrissey shoots it low, far pad, and it goes right to Cole Perfetti's stick off the rush, and Perfetti's able to bury it. Let's quickly get to Cole Perfetti's thoughts. This was after the game, so he's still a little, down after the loss, but did comment on his 2 goals, snapping his long goal drought.
With the zone entry and kind of getting his own rebound, how good did that feel just on a personal level for you?
I mean, yeah, it was. It felt really good to score. It was a great play by him. I mean, that's the kind of individual stuff that he can do. It's a one-on-one, and he puts it through the defender and then creates so much space with his speed that he finds a late guy coming through. And then I just went to the net and it just hit my stick. I mean, that's kind of what I figured it was going to be like after, the drought it was. I figured it was going to be a greasy one, and it was.
Second one wasn't quite as greasy, but just an example, sometimes once you maybe break that dam, that things can start to really happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think one, the confidence, 2, sometimes it's just like the puck luck kind of goes your way. I mean, you're on that route in the last 10 games, nothing doesn't come to you, but then tonight, you're feeling yourself, and puck comes right to you, and then you don't even think twice, and you don't dust it, and it goes in. I mean, that's on a personal note, that feels good, but it's just it sucks to lose. And when you play, when you play that strong, like as a team, when you play that strong and everyone's working really, really hard, it sucks when you don't get the results you want.
So there it is, Cole Perfetti after Friday's loss against the Vegas Golden Knights. And Liz, he said something there when talking about his second goal, about how, you maybe skate that route over the last 10 games and the puck just doesn't even come to you. Do you subscribe to the fact that maybe Perfetti was a little snake bitten over these last, 11 games without a goal? And then Friday night, maybe got a little lucky. I mean, the deflection was a nice play. The rebound did come right to him off the rush, but nice of him to bury those 2 goals and snap that goal drought.
I am the worst when it comes to like fun content or like having good conversations about these sorts of things because I'm like, I don't care. I wasn't that worried about Cole Perfetti, and like we wouldn't have been having this conversation today about the Vegas game if that post in the Minnesota game had gone in. Like,
Right.
a goal, 2 goals doesn't really matter to me, to be honest with you. Like in this span that Cole Perfetti hasn't been that good, he's been fine. He has
Right.
won his matchup without getting on the scoreboard, which isn't always easy to do. It's kind of the inverse of what we see from the top line sometimes, where it's like, oh my God, they had 3 goals against. It's like, hey, but they scored 4 goals. So what can you do? Very, very different situation. He's looked fine, but all of the things that I thought he was struggling with in that time frame, I think he will continue to struggle with. There are no signs. Those 2 goals don't make me feel like he's like, if you think a player has a real problem, hockey is such a game of so many moments that one moment is not going to really change that. I understand the metaphor of breaking the dam. I don't believe in that in hockey. I don't. Like either you're too caught up in your head and you're doing something wrong that one moment can flip the switch in order for you to start doing something that you for some reason were incapable of doing. I don't really understand that. I understand the pressures and the cons, like the monkey off the back. I get that, whatever. But at the end of the day, like I still have some of the same question marks about Cole Perfetti as I did before, but I'm still not concerned about him.
Yeah, I will agree with you on the, like it was the Rasmus Kapari thing from last year, and then he scored in the first game this year. It's like
if he scored 1 goal last year, everyone would have changed their opinions on him, and it's like no, no.
But I will say, I will push back on it a little bit because a player like Cole Perfetti, I think we have seen struggle with confidence issues at the NHL level, dating back to last year with that 2023 game goal drought, I think it was. And I'm sure Cole Perfetti wouldn't say it, but he was probably, at game 9, game 10, thinking about that drought last year going, oh my God, here we go again. But hey, it again, like he said, you run that route a ton.
The game before too, right?
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a different thing, but then again, that falls into the mental category for sure. Sorry, go on.
Well, no, I'm wrapping up because it's. I mean, that's what it is with Cole Perfetti. I think it is a confidence thing, and I think, like he said, you can skate that route every game for the last 10 games and the puck doesn't come to you, but then one time it does, you take advantage of it. Maybe it ups your confidence a little bit, and that was good to see for Cole Perfetti. One thing that was not good to see for the Winnipeg Jets is that Nikolai Ehlers exited this game with what appeared to be a left ankle, lower body injury. He kind of just went in for a hit and kind of fell awkwardly. Murat Atesh from The Athletic tweeted out that he thought it was maybe like just a rolled ankle or something like that. I thought the same thing. Looked like his left ankle kind of just buckled. But anyways, he exited the game and did not return. But Scott O'Neill actually gave a good update at practice yesterday. He gave a good update after the game first, saying Ehlers is day-to-day. We'll get him checked out tomorrow. But here's what Scott O'Neill had to say after practice yesterday on Nikolai Ehlers' status for today's game against the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, just again, we'll go day to day here. Just not, we'll see how he is tomorrow. See if he's any better tomorrow. Get some treatment, get some rest today, and then look at it tomorrow. See where we're at. Obviously can't really do a whole heck of a lot till we get home.
So would you rule him out though for tomorrow's game?
We'll wait. Well, let's see how today goes. He's getting full treatment today, and see if there's more soreness or if it's better. And he's the type of guy who wants to play. I'm not going to rule him out of anything yet, but it doesn't help that it's a 3:30 game. But we'll just kind of get through today and look at it tomorrow morning.
Bit of a relief in the sense that when you see a guy go down and obviously not return to the game. Maybe.
Well, let's wait and see if he's in tomorrow. Then
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, unfortunate. Obviously, you know what he means to us. You saw what he did on the Perfetti's first goal, and he has a skill set that the opposition coaches kind of circle with his speed and his ability to create. So, it's a hole when he's not there.
So there it is, Scott O'Neill from yesterday's practice. Mike McIntyre there on the road asking the questions. And I thought it was the best news to come out of that little 1-minute clip there was when Mike kind of said, "So would you rule him out for tomorrow?" And O'Neill goes, "Whoa. Let's wait and see." Like it seems like there's a real chance he plays today, which, with day-to-day players isn't always the case. Like Austin Matthews was day-to-day with his injury and missed like 10 games, right?
And
Like
he was
that.
at like Oktoberfest, bro. Come on.
Yes, yeah, right. Exactly. Well, that's just what you see around the league. You've seen it actually with Nikolai Ehlers before as well. Last or a few years ago, he had an injury that Rick Bowness said was day-to-day, and he ended up missing a long time. So again, like Scott O'Neill said in his third answer there, let's wait and see until he's in today before we, feel good about Nikolai Ehlers' status or anything like that. But I think it's a positive sign that he wouldn't rule him out for today's game against the Stars. Lyss, thoughts on the injury and what the Jets might look like without Nikolai Ehlers today, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, the moment I saw that, my heart kind of fell to my chest just simply because it's like, oh boy, is this the time? And again, I'm the worst. I'm not a believer in, like bad things coming in threes or whatever, any of this stuff. Like, no, I don't know. But like you watch what's happened with like the Colorado Avalanche and stuff like that. And sometimes teams just catch a stroke of bad luck, like game after game after game, week after month after year, whatever, so much. And losing Dylan Samberg was a huge loss for the Winnipeg Jets. And we can talk a little bit about what that hole has looked like this week since that injury occurred last Friday or whatever it was. But the Nikolai Ehlers injury coming soon-ish after that, I was like, oh boy, it's like maybe we're really about to see if this team will stand the test of time. But you don't want that. So I'm really glad to hear that. And again, same thing where like Dylan Samberg hadn't received a ton of tests or anything like that. And between when his shot was blocked in the end of the game, the foot was known to be broken, right? When things are real bad, you can often tell right away, not with everything, but with some injuries for sure. I'm not going to play MD, even though I like to do that sometimes. So I'm feeling fine about it, but it is one of those things where it's like, hopefully it gives the team enough of a scare to say, wow, in a game where we want to score off the rush, which is hint all 82 games of the year, the Winnipeg Jets want to play a good rush game. Losing that guy, you're humbled pretty quickly. So I think, one of those things that, hey, maybe it has a positive impact where the Jets probably saw, for that remaining 35 minutes or whatever it was that he wasn't on the ice, how much it changes the game. And hopefully they say thank you, Nick, when he comes back and when he's healthy in the lineup, and they say, we appreciate you, we respect you. And he has his faults like everyone else, but he brings a really important element to the game. Like Scott O'Neill said, that other teams definitely circle because there are very few players quite like him. So here's hoping he's healthy. If he doesn't play today, it seems like fresh legs is a priority for this team right now. I guess you can probably get into the defense eventually, but
Yes.
David Gustafsson, it would be fine to see him get into a game. So if Nikolai Ehlers needs an extra day, I think they can give that to him, because we know what happens when you play guys when they're not at 100% in important top 6 roles for the Winnipeg Jets during a long road trip. So
mic drop. Bang. Well, anyways, before I ask you potentially on today's game, if Ehlers misses, who's going to move up, comment with this comment. Thank you very much. We did release a video yesterday morning picking our roster, Team Canada, for the Four Nations face-off. And today we are actually going to be releasing our Team USA picks right after this. So Huss and Remo, what they usually do, with the CFL 110, stick around and we'll do a little self-raid. We're going to do the same thing here. As I said earlier, we're going to have Gavin Spittle provide a Stars perspective later on in the show. Super excited for that. He's going to hop on at around 10 o'clock. Me and him are going to talk for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to self-raid our Team USA picks for the Four Nations face-off. Spoiler alert, there are Jets on the roster, and a pretty important one in the crease. So you're going to want to check that video out. But Lyss, the chat seems pretty divided on who could maybe slide up if Nikolai Ehlers misses time today. AJ here saying Alex Iafallo. Doug saying Morgan Barron. Kim saying Nino could move up as well. Who are you thinking gets moved up? We saw Alex Iafallo take that role in the Vegas game when Nikolai Ehlers was out. Do you think they make a change, or do you think it's Iafallo?
Yeah, I think considering what this injury looks like as of right now, I would expect it to be Alex Iafallo. I think that makes sense. I think if it was something longer term, that's when I'd like to see the line blender come out and trying out some combinations of, Peretti with Lowry and stuff like that we've talked about for years, just like different random combos that we'd like to see. But the likelihood as of right now of this situation being more than a couple games seems pretty low. So I would do kind of the easiest band-aid situation, which is move up your Walmart Matthew Perreault in Alex Iafallo, guy who can kind of slide up and down in the lineup whenever you need him to. And I would probably toss him up there, throw David Gustafsson down on the fourth line, kind of call it a day. Other option would be to, like someone said in the chat, move Carey up, but I don't know how ready I am for that. The only thing that does is it brings that speed element back to that second line that desperately needs it. So I think there is a little bit of interestingness, horrible word. It's early, I'm sorry. In that sort of combination, I think to try and get him up there. And I would throw him at center, and I would probably put Vlad Nemestikov to the wing, because I also would like to see Vlad Nemestikov on the wing at some point, just to see, because I haven't been loving Vlad Nemestikov like a ton lately. We were joking around in our group chat. I don't know. I feel like that man goes offside like at least 3 or 4 times a game, which is crazy at the NHL level. But all that's to say, there's been a few different aspects of his game that I've been less keen on this year, almost as a whole, from Vlad Nemestikov. So an opportunity to see if he looks any different on the wing. Granted, one game is one game. I don't know if we'd get very many, real, actual, tangible, actionable results from that, but I would be interested to see that. So I think they probably go Iafallo. Carey, I think, is a likely second option. I don't foresee Barron getting the promotion right now. And I don't know, but I'm curious. While you kind of give your response, I'm going to read through the chat and see what everyone else had to say, because I'd love to hear some other thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I also am in the camp with the majority of the chat that it should be Alex Iafallo, because last year, actually, when Kyle Connor got hurt with that knee injury, we saw Nikolai Ehlers slide up to the top line. We know how good that line was with Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde. The Jets went on a long winning streak. That line was cruising and destroying everyone in their path. The second line behind them was Cole Perfetti, Vlad Nemestikov, and Alex Iafallo. Their numbers from last year, they outscored their opponents 8-3 at 5-on-5. They controlled 60% of the expected goals and 58% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5. So that was in 152 5-on-5 minutes. So that's a pretty, that's not a large sample size, but that's a good enough sample size to where I'd move Iafallo up. And like Les said here, hopefully just for one game, Iafallo is the easiest solution. That line had success last year. I would move Iafallo up, but this whole conversation might be for nothing if Nikolai Ehlers plays today. But I like what I saw out of that line last year when Ehlers was on the top line. They, have a forechecking element with Nemestikov and Iafallo, and both of those guys, Nemestikov and Iafallo, can kind of capitalize off the skill that Cole Perfetti can set them up for. So I think they can play a good two-way style of game, those three players. And maybe they're not your most dynamic scoring second line like it is with Nikolai Ehlers on it. It's not your optimal scoring second line, but I do think that they can win their minutes. And for a one-game sample, hopefully for Nikolai Ehlers, I think that would be the best option. Anything else on Nikolai Ehlers moving up to the second line? We are going to move to the back end where the Jets did make some lineup changes on Friday. We can get to Scott O'Neill's comments first on the lineup changes. Here's what he had to say after Friday's game on inserting Logan Stanley and Dylan Coghlan for Ville Heinola and Colin Miller.
This guy's in at once.
Well, the biggest thing is some fresh legs, just because it's been such a grind here, and just came off the 4 and 6 and the long travel from Minnie, and it was really, Stan was ready to go, and we need him to be a part of our group. And Cogs that he had played here before. I just wanted to get his in, like I said, some fresh legs in there, and kind of thought those two were fine. I know that the one goal, but not so much them on that one. It had a lot more to do with our turnover, but liked a lot of what they did. And anytime guys go in, they're a little bit rusty, but I thought they got stronger as the game moved along.
Yeah, on that.
So there it is, Scott O'Neill on the defensive lineup changes that they made. Lyss, what were your initial thoughts of the lineup changes, and how did you think they worked out in that game Friday against Vegas? I have my thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
I don't know, man. Listen, I get it. I understand the concept of fresh legs, whatever. You activate this guy off of IR about 45 seconds before rosters are due. What do you mean, fresh legs? You need to get him in there. Give him a sec. This guy's not healthy entirely yet. I don't understand what the rush is, especially considering how Ville Heinola and Colin Miller were fine the game before. Dylan Coughlin is such a weird one to me too. There were so many opportunities to play him before. You know, when they were talking about getting guys into the lineup and everything, like Hayden Fleury has been a pretty solid regular now since, there have been a couple of injuries back there and stuff like that. Like, there were opportunities to get them in before. Logan Stanley didn't need to play right away. I understand if there's some urgency in getting Dylan Coughlin in, sure, fine. But you have this guy named Ville Heinola, who hasn't played professional NHL hockey in 23 months. And, Rick Bowness last year says he made the team. He says to the media, looks him in the eye and says he made the team. If it weren't for that injury, he made the team. Scott Arniel says, we want Ville on this team. He was heartbroken about this injury. He says he's his biggest fan. And then you say he's going to get a leash. You say all these things, plays 2 games, and he gets a healthy scratch. I understand the concept of that sort of thing. They were load managing him in those 2 games, as they should. I don't necessarily think that he should be playing from here on out for the rest of the season. I think it's okay to cycle him through whatever. I just feel like that particular game, and also, why is Colin Miller a scapegoat for this when he's been better than, frankly, the other right-handed defenseman on this team? Like, there are so many things that just kind of confuse me about it. And then I'm sorry, why doesn't David Gustafsson get to play? Like, there's so many different things that don't really make a ton of sense to me about it and that frustrate me about it. I get it. It's not the end of the world. Some of these guys are going to slide back into the lineup today. I have a feeling we will see David Gustafsson today. If Nikolai Ehlers plays, I could see them scratching like Barron or something like that just to get Gustafsson into the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised, because it's just one of those things that it's like, you have so many forwards that could take a game. You really do. I'm sorry. You have a lot of forwards that I would like to see just take a sec. I know this road trip has been tough for a lot of reasons, but I don't know. I have a lot of different feelings about it.
Yeah, I mean, the chat is firing off their takes, and I agree with the majority of them. My thing is that Colin Miller's better than a rotational guy. Like, I think also this whole, we needed fresh legs, but we subbed out our third pair D, who Ville Heinola was even having his minutes managed on Monday and Wednesday, and rightfully so. I'm not criticizing that decision. Like you said, Ville Heinola playing his first NHL action in 23 months. Have them, run Miller and DeMello for a shift in the defensive zone just to give Ville maybe an extra few minutes to catch his breath, because it's tough to come into the NHL like that, right? And he was just healthy last Thursday, was his first game coming off of, no training camp and all this stuff. I get that. But he's playing like 12 minutes a night. He's the guy that has fresh legs. I know Stanley was rehabbing from an injury, and I don't know. I just think Colin Miller is better than a rotational guy. And Spencer here saying let DeMello sit a game. I think there's a lot of players in the top 4, not named Josh Morrissey. I guess there's only 3 outside of him then, that could use a game off. Like, Colin Miller could have slid up, and Neil Pionk could have taken a game off. Or Hayden Fleury, as good as he's been stepping up into that top 4 role, this is clearly, he hasn't really played a top 4 role in a long time for any team. He's been a depth guy. He's been the Ville Heinola, come in and play 12, 13 minutes when needed. But I think he could use a game off in the top 4 as well. We'll see what the lineup is today. Maybe they go Heinola, Pionk on the second pair and Stanley on the third pair, and have Fleury have that game off. But it's really interesting. My initial takeaway was of shock, because I thought Colin Miller was kind of above the rotational aspect of the deep.
Right.
I thought he's been really, really solid on that third pair.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, going back to like the confidence of Ville Heinola, I am, again, and plug the ears of my kids. It's different for when you're coaching children, for when you're coaching grown men. But like, I don't choose building confidence over winning hockey games. I understand that if you think it's important to take Ville Heinola out of the lineup, then whatever, do it. I don't care. But someone brought this up in the chat, and I'll have to find the comment. It's a little bit up there that Ville's, I think it was Rob, Rob Mahoney said, need to get the puck out of their own end. Nothing's more important. Moving the puck is a strong point of Ville's game. Makes 0 sense. And I agree with that entirely. I think Ville Heinola's style of play, yes, we can get into the smallest decor in the league, whatever, I don't know. But why is that Ville's fault? And if he brings the one strength to this team that enhances what they're good at, you should be prioritizing trying to get him into the lineup regularly. And I think the Jets will continue to prioritize getting him into the lineup. I really do. I do think that they want him to play, but it's just like, I don't know. How do you feel as that player when you come in and they're like, oh yeah, they use the fresh legs comment when, like you said, you are the fresh legs. And there are a lot of other guys who have been playing. I'm not saying Josh Morrissey needs to be scratched by any means. I don't think it would make sense to scratch Josh Morrissey, but why is that the excuse, or not the excuse, but the reasoning you give when you have a guy who's been playing 25 minutes a night for the past 4 or 5 games? Like, strange to me. I don't know. But I also understand that that's just how hockey works. When you need to cycle guys, there are about 4 forwards and about 3 defensemen that are kind of part of that chopping block that you can rip through, and the rest have that job security. I get that, but I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm with you on that. It was really puzzling, but I see a comment here from Josh about Villy's gap control in the neutral zone. And I thought that was something that really impressed me earlier on in these 2 games that we saw him. I thought he played great, and I know his minutes were managed, and I know that he had this one rough line change against the Wild, and he was a little rusty in that first game. I expected all of that. I expected rust. I expected him to have some rough moments, but I thought he settled in really nicely in that Minnesota game, played well for his first NHL game in 23 months. And then the LA game, again, minutes were managed, very small sample size, but I thought he was okay on that third pair. It was American Thanksgiving on Thursday, which is usually a benchmark for the season, not only for the standings, but for players. What are they on pace for? Things like that. We kind of know. People say that American Thanksgiving is, we know what we need to know about really every single team in the NHL. We've figured them out to this point. We're 24 games into the season here with the Winnipeg Jets. Where are we at with this team? Best 15 game start in NHL history. They've only won 3 out of their last 8 games here. Tough road trip. Where are you at with this team at American Thanksgiving, which is a very common benchmark in the NHL schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of strange because from, let's say the end of last season till now, my thoughts on this team have gone up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And now I feel like where I've landed is slightly above the expectations of what I had going into the season. I thought this was the year the Winnipeg Jets are going to take a step back, and I wear that. Like, I really thought that this was the year that, they would kind of reset a little bit and then, make a harder push next year when you have some cap efficiency with guys like Chibrikov and Lambert making full-time spots on the roster, stuff like that. And then I was proven incredibly wrong, and then we've kind of sunk back down, whatever, but I still was not expecting this team to be at this stage, as in first in the league at American Thanksgiving at the beginning of the season. And if you did, congrats to you. I think your line of thinking may have been a bit flawed if that was the conclusion that you landed on in September or whatever. But hey, I love it. I like the confidence. But I think this team is good. But I think where I land for American Thanksgiving is that this year in the NHL is a weird year.
Very.
Nobody is good. This is a strange NHL that we are watching right now. I feel like so many teams are so incredibly flawed. And I remember a couple of years ago, after Colorado won the cup and they sort of took a little bit of a step back, I remember being super adamant that the Winnipeg Jets become big buyers and try and push, because I was like, Dallas is okay, right? They're good right now, but they're going to get better. Colorado's kind of fallen off, whatever. I thought, and then Chicago was coming out of the rebuild, and maybe Utah or Arizona at the time, whatever. I thought the Winnipeg Jets' best chance to win because of the weakness of the Central was a couple years ago. But this year, it's not even the Central. It's the league. The league is bad.
It's wild. Minnesota's second. The Washington Capitals are third and the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. New Jersey's fourth. They were expected to be good. Carolina's fifth. Vegas is sixth. Again, all these teams expected to be good. LA is seventh. Florida, Toronto, Dallas, Edmonton, Calgary's 12th. I don't know. And these teams, that Edmonton 13-9-2, Calgary 12-9-4 are the 11th and 12th best teams in the NHL. They're fine. They're not. There's a lot more parity this year. And I like this comment from Spency. I wanted to highlight it. We are heading towards this kind of where if the Jets and the Wild continue on the path that they've been on through these first 24 games, they battle for the top 2 spots all year long, and they're the 2 best teams in the league. Whether or not that holds, and again, like Jeff says here, the Oilers are heating up again. I still expect the Oilers to be kind of the class of the Western Conference, if you will, along with, the Vegases of the world and the Jets. They deserve to be lumped in there, even though the playoffs didn't go their way last year. But yeah, this is a weird season so far
Weird year
in the NHL.
Yeah,
Just no team really separating themselves from everyone else, except for the Jets, who, again, the first 18 games they separated themselves, and as of late they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit. But yeah,
and it's hard because I'm like, I still think the Winnipeg Jets have some fundamental problems, and like I think they are things that have bled out from other playoff exits in the past, like some similar issues, whatever. I'm not saying this team is perfect, but like if you start giving, doing an autopsy on every single team in the league here, you're finding a lot of flaws across the board. Like, and also I think some of it, not all of it, is part and partial up because of the amount of head coaching turnover we've seen in the past 2 seasons, where Marty St. Louis is now the second longest tenured coach, or third or fourth, I think, because other than John Cooper and Rod the Bod, I think he might be third or something like that, which is crazy, right? Like, there's been a lot of movement and changes and reactions. And, last year Florida won the Cup, so everyone now needs to be like Florida. And the year before that, Vegas won the Cup, and everyone needs to be like Vegas. Like, I think there's a lot of movement and change in the NHL, and I feel like it's starting to catch up with teams a little bit. I'm not going to lie. So it's a very, very, very interesting year. That's my American Thanksgiving takeaway, is what is going on.
Yeah. I'm with you, because I don't know, like I said, I still expect the Oilers to be the class of the West, but watching them through these first 24 games, nothing is really inspiring about their team outside of McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard and obviously all those guys. But then they still lose games because of Stuart Skinner. And it's like, okay, their weakness is still their biggest weakness. Like they still can't get a save. Same with,
Hey,
Colorado.
That's my Team Canada goalie.
There you go. No, absolutely not. I won't watch the Four Nations face-off if Stuart Skinner's the starter.
USA.
Yeah, go Connor Hellebuyck at that point. Colorado. I mean, this was a team that everyone thought would be, again, top 3 team in the Central. And you know what? I'm not ruling out them going on a crazy run to get back into the top 3 and knock off one of the 3 teams, which, the 3 teams in the Central Division playoffs right now have separated themselves from everyone else: Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Dallas. But like, Colorado can't get a save. And as Comet said here, they traded for a backup, Kevin Lankinen. They traded away Annunen, and it was just like a late pick swap. They're trying everything they can in net because Georgiev's not giving them anything. Annunen was not giving them anything either. Trade for some experience in Lankinen, but like, I don't know. They just need to be better. And this is a great comment. Maybe the best comment in WST Sunday Live history. Team Connor. Go Connor. Go USA. Yeah. Kyle and Hellebuyck. Anyways, continue
and
on
Hrabchak.
USA. Thank you. But I'm not American, so it makes no sense. So that's a terrible comment, Smitzy. No. Any other thoughts on the NHL as a whole? As we
I mean, a couple people have brought it up in the chat, but also the Wild trading for David Hrabchak yesterday.
Yes.
Like, I hate that team, but man, oh man, like I honestly, like, just from like a hockey, more like holistic perspective, I would love to see the Minnesota Wild be like actually exciting, because they were good for like a while back when the West was a little bit of a bloodbath, and you had the really deep teams with not a lot of superstars and all that sort of thing. They definitely fit that bill. But now they have Kirill Kaprizov, and they have a couple, like, they, in my opinion, on the XY graph of good right now and good future, are one of the best teams in terms of having a loaded prospect pool, and hey, being tied for first in the NHL as we speak right now. Like, I think that would be awesome for the city of Minneapolis, for the province of Minnesota, or sorry, the state of Minnesota. My bad. But like, I think it would be super cool. And I'd love to see Minnesota do well, as weird as that sounds. Like, I don't care for them. I'm not, every time the whiteout yesterday actually made me like physically ill. But, it's exciting when new teams
I can't.
that haven't been in this Rolodex of contenders for the last however long start kind of eking their way in. I think it's really fun. And I think this is the year that we see some of those new teams come in, just because it's anyone's game, as cliche as that sounds. You can't look at this standings situation right now. You can't look at the teams in the league right now and be like, oh, yeah, I knew he was going to win the cup. Okay, then let me
No.
know where your crystal ball is, because I'd like to see
Yeah.
what my future is, because I have no idea.
Yeah, no kidding. The whiteout yesterday, I know the chat would have thoughts on it. I will say, I think the best kind of thing that I've heard about it was Remus was saying how the whiteout here in Winnipeg was organic. They told people to wear white, and they did. Yesterday at the Minnesota Wild game, they handed out free white T-shirts to every seat and said, "Hey, we're doing a whiteout." Like, it's just, it's not really, it's not. Don't worry. They're second to us in terms of the whiteout and the fans here. Just quickly, this show isn't sponsored by Coolbet, but I do want to look at the Vegas lines for Stanley Cup odds, because you brought it up there. Who's the favorite? It's the Edmonton Oilers, plus 750. The Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, and Dallas Stars all tied for second in odds. Then the New York Rangers, who, if you ask any Rangers fan, have been like a massive disappointment in their eyes so far this year. Like, they're still in a playoff spot and they're still winning games, but it's largely on the back of Igor Shesterkin. Mika Zibanejad looks snake bitten, to say the least. Well, not snake bitten because he's not generating much. And the Jets are still below the Colorado Avalanche in cup odds, below the Vegas Golden Knights, the Leafs, the Devils, and then the Rangers and the teams I already mentioned. So the Edmonton Oilers still the Stanley Cup favorite, but that's a long odds for American Thanksgiving, like plus 750 for the cup winner at American Thanksgiving, when we should know everything about every team, kind of thing, are pretty long odds. So it speaks to the parity in this league
last year at this time, because I could tell you for free that Edmonton wouldn't have been that high last year, because at this time last year they were firing their coach, and they were in the doghouse and things were not going well, and they really picked it up in the second half. I wonder, Florida was probably high, but I bet you Vegas was real high, Colorado was real high, Tampa was probably decently high last year. Like, I feel like these cup odds are based a little bit more on like larger samples than how the season's going, which is probably how they should be. But it's very interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's time to lock in a couple of bets then.
Maybe. But again, if you ask me right now who my cup pick is, I got nothing for you.
Literally, exactly.
So, I mean, like, there's value on the board, but where?
Dylan Strome and the Washington Capitals. Book it.
They're probably still like 17th in cup odds. Let's be honest. Like, Vegas probably does not believe it at all. But anyways, let's get to the brand new segment, Lyss. We're debuting a new segment here on today's show. And we put our brains together. We wanted to add a segment to the show, and this is one that we felt was the best. Super excited to launch this. It's Trending Up or Down, a segment where we outline who or what is trending up or down for the Winnipeg Jets over the past week of play. The rules are simple. Both Lyss and I will each pick something or someone who is trending up and trending down, and we cannot repeat an answer that has already been said. The most important rule of this segment is that all of you who have joined us here live on YouTube must share your picks in the chat as well. Lyss, I'll let you go first today for the first ever trending up or trending down. Let's start with the positive vibes. Who's trending up for the Winnipeg Jets over the past week?
Yeah, lots of positives here. I think, okay, hold on. Am I going to go first for both of these?
I don't know.
Because I feel like there's a couple of really,
are you
like,
want to defer to the second half? You want to defer to
let's snake draft it. I'll go do my up, and then you do your up, and then you do your down, because I think there are two obvious ones, and I don't want to take them both, but I was for trending up,
really
I'm gonna go with Cole Peretti. I think the game on Friday, like we said, even though this maybe is counterintuitive to what I was talking about, how, I think he still has some problems, but I wasn't even that worried about him. So the game didn't change a lot. I think the confidence is the biggest thing with this guy, just like you brought up. And I think getting that monkey off the back with a guy who, scored 20 goals last year and is a big, important part of this team's offense going forward. I think more so than previous weeks, they got the green arrows going up for this player going into this week. So my trending up goes to Cole Peretti.
Nice. Okay. My trending up And it's not, I mentioned him earlier, and I'm going to need to explain myself a little bit. But my trending up is Ville Heinola. He gets into the lineup this week. And like I said, he didn't like break the door down. Oh my goodness, this guy has to be in the top 4 going forward. He played out of his mind. Amazing. But there was going to be rust. I thought he settled in nicely in the Monday game against the Minnesota Wild. I thought he played well in the Wednesday game against the LA Kings. None of the Jets really played well. But the reason I'm saying trending up is for the reason I mentioned earlier. When Stanley and Coghlan went into the lineup, they did nothing to prove to me that the best third pair going forward for the Winnipeg Jets is Heinola and Miller. So for that reason, not only did Ville Heinola look steady this week, but his replacements that came in on Friday against Vegas didn't really do anything to, steal the job or win the job or looked unbeatable in that role. So for that reason, I'm doing trending up Ville Heinola. Lyss says Cole Peretti. Now it's time to go trending down. Lyss, the read for this segment says it's someone or something. So it can be a group of players. It can be, a situational thing for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to do an entire group of players here. It's the Winnipeg Jets top line is trending down for me. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele both didn't have a shot on goal on Wednesday's game against the LA Kings. Since Mark Scheifele's injury, which is the most obvious secret right now, which came the first game after the practice he missed last Wednesday was Pittsburgh. So right at the start of this 6-game road trip, Mark Scheifele stopped taking faceoffs. That Pittsburgh game, they were fine. Pittsburgh is not very good. They feasted on a bad team. That's what they're supposed to do. Saturday against Nashville, Monday against Minnesota was all the bottom 6 in that win. All the bottom 6 and Connor Hellebuyck. Wednesday against LA, they had no shots on goal. And then Friday night against Vegas, I thought they looked a little bit better, but still nowhere near the level that you need your top line to be playing at. So I'm going all the way back to last Saturday, which, this is the debut of this segment. So I'm going back longer than a week. But for me, the entire top line is trending down, and they need a strong performance today against a divisional opponent. Because, like I said, since Scheifele's injury that he, is not telling anyone about, which rightfully so, you don't want to disclose injuries, but he's playing on the wing, he's not taking faceoffs. This line has really, really faltered. So I'm watching them today against Dallas, but they're my trending down pick. Who's trending down for you?
Man, it took 3 guys.
I did. I took an entire group.
Completely agree with you on that. Couldn't have said it better myself. When looking at this in how this segment will be going forward, we'll be, talking about in the last week, right? Right now, since this is a new segment, it's pretty easy for us to be like, okay, who's trending down this season, trending down, whatever. Crazy take. My trending down for this week is Josh Morrissey. I think this was one of the rougher weeks of Josh Morrissey that we have seen in years. Do I think he is bad? No. Do I think he's the best defenseman on the team? Yes, absolutely, and it's not even close. But people in the chat are saying DeMello. I get that. I understand that. DeMello this week looked like DeMello the week before and the week before. And DeMello's had a little bit of a rougher season, in my opinion. This week, Josh Morrissey didn't look good to me. I thought he was rough in that LA game. I really didn't like him in that game. I thought his decision-making, especially in the offensive zone, was just, it's not the Josh Morrissey that we know and love here in the city of Winnipeg, right? So Josh Morrissey gets my trending down for this week, and I certainly think that he will make me bite those words just like he has for, the last year and a bit. I think just in terms of relative to our expectations, people in the chat are saying Stanley. I'm not going to say Stanley. He's exactly what I thought he was going to be. There's no trending up, trending down with him for me in that one. Thank you, Dom. I appreciate the validation because I know this is a crazy take because other than Connor Hellebuyck, Josh Morrissey is the most consistent, the most important Winnipeg Jet when he is playing the role that he's playing. But this week was just a little bit off for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you know what? This whole fatigue, time zones, I know everyone was making fun of me earlier for mentioning time zones. But I will say, over the last week, with the Dylan Samberg injury on Saturday night against the Predators and the Jets going down to 5D in that game, Josh Morrissey played 28 and a half minutes in that game Saturday night. So I think maybe the fatigue and the attrition of this 6-game road trip is catching up to nobody more than Josh Morrissey.
Yeah.
He's playing a lot of minutes against the toughest competition. this is bound to happen. I think to
And I
have a
feel
few off
like
games, and yeah, I
I'm
don't
seeing a
disagree. is
little
what I'll say.
bit of the Josh Morrissey that I saw a little bit in the playoffs last year, where I feel like he gets this gear sometimes when the team cannot score, and he gets a little bit of the like, fine, I'll do it myself.
Mhm.
But like, I feel like he starts doing, because he's so gifted offensively and his decision making is incredible, where he jumps on 70% of the pucks and he makes a pass X% of the time. He increases all of that. And sometimes it's like, well, that was the wrong thing to do. But it's like,
Right.
there's a little bit of desperation, I feel like that shows. And it's like, I like that, because it's like the, if not you, then who kind of thing. I totally understand it. But I feel like that desperation causes him to lose the steadiness, which is the most important part of his game. And I feel like we've seen a little bit of that this week since the Jets, when they're playing behind. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing that we want to introduce with this segment is that we can't pick the same players next week either. So if we think Josh Morrissey has another bad
See,
week,
and
we
I'm
can't do
safe
it.
because
And you're
he'll be
safe,
fine.
yeah. So this is a strategic pick from Lyss. You
Yeah.
can't go down 2 weeks in a row. It's Josh Morrissey. He'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no panic here, but I do
Your
agree.
pick, on the other hand, we'll see about that.
Could be. Well, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I think they need to have a statement game here at some point against a good team. Because they had a statement game against Pittsburgh, if you want to say it, but they've had 3 really rough games in a row. So
Yeah.
that top line really needs to step it up. And hey,
Yeah.
when your top line and your top defensemen are on the trending down part of this segment, it's no wonder the Jets have lost 3 out of their last 4, only won 3 out of their last 8 games. Like, I think this road trip's really catching up to them, and this game today is going to be really interesting, because I'm going to talk here with Gavin Spittle coming up in about 5-10 minutes about the Stars, who we know, deep team, wagon, good goaltending, good defense scores. So this is a big test today. What are you looking for today in today's game against Dallas, Lyss?
I'm looking to see if the Winnipeg Jets can replicate some of the magic that we saw last time they played Dallas, right? That was one of the best games we've seen from them this year, was that game on the Super Saturday that was a few weeks ago that
Right.
Aged a little bit poorly, because the Winnipeg Jets went on to lose in Tampa and Florida that following week. And we know what happened the following Sunday with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But I digress. We don't need to rehash that incredible day
Lyss.
followed by that heartbreaking week afterwards. But that was one of the best complete games I've seen from the Winnipeg Jets this year, and probably last year too. Top 10 Jets game from the past, from this core group, right? Like, it was a really, really awesome game. And I find that the Winnipeg Jets play interesting games against their division opponents. Sometimes I find it's not just division opponents, because we talked about this with Florida as well, who I put into the category of teams that they circle in the calendar, right? Like, with teams that they are doing their research on. I understand you research every single team you play against. That's not what I'm getting into, but you're familiar with these teams. You're familiar with how they play. You're familiar with what their strengths and weaknesses are and stuff like that. And I think that while this Dallas Stars team has changed a lot in the last couple of years, I think the Winnipeg Jets have a pretty good book on them to start the season. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes, because last year the Dallas Stars kind of destroyed Winnipeg, not gonna lie, in most of their meetings. And so it could go either way. I really do believe that. But I think this is a massive game for the Winnipeg Jets, in the same way that the Florida rematch was a massive game, and the Winnipeg Jets showed that they were tough and they showed that they could react and be agile. I think this is similar in the sense that, like you said, it's 2 points that you don't want to give to the other team. It's 2 points that you desperately need yourself. And when you marry those things together, you want to have a really good performance. So I just think, generally speaking, like, very interested to see kind of who seems to outmuscle the other in this game in terms of like strategy, and who is willing to not adapt their game too much and ensure that they're still playing their own game, because that's what makes both of these teams so good. And I'm also just curious to see what the lines are and who plays in this game. I know that's pretty simple and easy, but we saw there was a big shift on Friday, and it will be interesting to see if they revert back to the Minnesota game, or if they revert back to the LA game, or they try something completely different, because they haven't been good for the past week.
Yeah, I agree. This is a big test for the Jets today. Thank you, everyone, for taking part in the trending up, trending down segment Like I said, this was the debut segment. We're going to be doing this every single week. We can't repeat our answers from this week to the next. So if Cole Perfetti has another great week, can't say trending up for a second week in a row. And like I said, the most important part of this segment is that all of you in the chat throw your picks down below, and you guys came to play, dropping your
Lots of
picks down
Kapari
below.
love. I'm
Lots of
liking
Kapari love. Yeah, I did see a lot of that. A lot of also a few comments that I saw on Scott Arneal kind of trending down with, we discussed maybe some of the lineup decisions there. People saying that as well. Where did I want to leave this off? Oh, yes, right. The Four Nations Face-Off video is premiering in about 30 minutes after this interview coming up here with Gavin Spittle. Lyss, maybe give people kind of a look into what they can expect out of our Team USA roster predictions coming up at 10:25.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched the Team Canada video yet, that one kind of primes what we're doing in the series. We are putting together what we would pick as our roster, not necessarily what our projection is for what we think the decision is going to be. But we had a little bit of fun with these and tried to, spice it up a little bit and get some controversial names in there. Because what's the fun in doing these if you're not going to get a couple of dark horse picks into the roster? So spoiler alert, there are a couple of Winnipeg Jets that make our Team USA roster, but a couple of really interesting names that I've seen on a lot of rosters that we left off, and we explained all that in the video, but we are expecting and hoping that you will flame us in the comments and share what your rosters are so we can flame you back, because we're pretty confident in ours and we think that we put together pretty good teams for Canada and the USA. So make sure you go check those out on the WST channel.
Yes, absolutely. I'm super excited for everyone to watch that. Like I said, after this WST Sunday Live, go check out the Team Canada picks that we released yesterday on the channel. Lyss, this was another great edition of WST Sunday Live. I got to say bye to you because I'm welcoming in Gavin Spittle. So thank you. Everyone stick around. We've got a great interview coming up here. And we will see Lyss again on the WST channel in about 30 minutes when her and I pick our Team USA roster. Thanks, Lyss, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.
See ya. Bye, guys.
See ya.
There you are, Connor. I actually can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm muted. Hello? Can you hear me now? You can hear me perfectly. I can't hear you now. Hello, hello. It's saying your mic isn't connected there, Gavin. Oh, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfect, man.
We're good. Okay, this is a live show. This is
a live show. Anything
it's a live show.
Happen.
This is what happens. This is what happens, right? How are you doing, man?
Man,
thanks
I'm doing
for coming
great.
on Spits and Suds podcast. Gavin Spittle, super excited to have him on from a Dallas Stars perspective ahead of today's game. How are you doing, Gavin?
I'm doing great. 10 degrees Celsius here in DFW. Good hockey weather,
wow.
Right?
Yeah, that is good hockey weather. I won't talk about what the weather is here today because that's a sore subject. Yeah, thanks everyone for sticking with us in the chat here through the technical difficulties. Let me just start before we get to the Dallas Stars. Any talk down there of the Winnipeg Jets? I mean, they had the best 15 game start in NHL history. I know Dallas is a big Central Division rival. They played the game against them a few weeks ago where the Jets played one of their best games of the season against one of the best teams in the NHL in Dallas. What's kind of the consensus down there of what the Jets have done so far through 24 games of this season?
Yeah, in fact, that was probably minus Florida in Finland. That was the biggest test of the season, and the Stars came up way short. So Winnipeg is actually the talk of Dallas right now. And today's tilt is actually, with Stars fans, very important because they saw what happened last time. And Winnipeg, the Jets just keep coming and coming and coming, and the Stars had no answers. And it was really tough for Stars fans to see. The interesting thing about this team is that, from a Winnipeg standpoint, Stars fans are looking at it, and it's almost like the Western Conference Finals, happened years ago, because the focus right now is Winnipeg and Minnesota, and specifically Winnipeg. So if you're asking, are they talking about Winnipeg and Dallas? Absolutely. They're wondering, A, wow, no one saw this coming. B, bonus, former Stars coach, was Winnipeg Jets coach, and all of a sudden change in coaching and this offensive explosion. So it's fascinating. And I think that's what catches Stars fans, looking, because the Stars, a lot of fans predicted them to be, tops in the Central Division, and that might still happen, but certainly the start of Winnipeg certainly has some concerns here in Dallas.
Yeah, and take me through the Dallas Stars season so far. They're sitting at 14-8, third in the Central. I was looking at their recent games. They just came off a big win on national TV there in the States against the Colorado Avalanche. Cale Makar had a play that made the highlight reel, but Dallas coming away with the win in that one.
Yep.
But earlier in the week, losing 6-2 to the Chicago Blackhawks, and then I think a week ago was a loss to the Anaheim Ducks. So they've had some weird losses in there. Take me through kind of the Stars season so far and where they're at coming into today's game.
I mean, if you like amusement roller coaster rides, this is the place for you in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's been one of those years, and it's not like they're having a bad season, but I think a lot more people thought they'd be more consistent, specifically on that first line with Robertson, Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston. And that line just hasn't come together, although they did the other night. So it's been one of those seasons where you had the San Jose's, you've played Chicago multiple times, you've played Anaheim, and you really, haven't been tested. And when you have been tested, you lost to Florida and Finland, you got swept, and then you lost to Winnipeg. You did go into Minnesota and win, and the other night they won in Tampa. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, a nice win against Vasilevsky in Florida, but then all of a sudden Monday night you had a 3-1 goal lead heading into Carolina, and you blew it, and you let up 6. And then you let up 6 against Chicago the other night, but then you showed up against Colorado and played really well. So it's like what Dallas Stars team will show up today is going to be fascinating. Not bad. They're a playoff team. In fact, they're a playoff contender. However, they just haven't been as consistent as you'd like to see. Now, here's the difference. They're 9-1 at home. So that one loss is Anaheim. And I actually thought the Ducks played really well that game, but they're 9-1 at home, and they have really, and that's the opposite, Connor, of what they were last year. They were a dominant road team. This year, they're dominant at the American Airlines Center.
Yeah, I feel like that building is always rocking. And against the Jets today on a Sunday afternoon when the Cowboys aren't playing, I know they played on Thursday, so I'm sure that building's going to be hopping today. I did want to ask, just taking a quick look at the Stars and their points leaders, we're so used to here in Winnipeg, Jason Robertson, Roope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen leading that. Matt Duchene is the leading scorer for the Dallas Stars at 27 points, and second is Mason Marchment with 23 points. What can you say about those two players? And then maybe touch on the fact that Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson and all those guys aren't leading the team in points.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest story of the year, Connor. And what's fascinating is Matt Duchene the other day talked about the Four Nations Cup and how he would love to represent Canada, but all signs are that he's not going to make the team. But when you look at Duchene and what he's done, 27 points in 22 games, and not only that, we have to take a step back and realize we had an aging Tyler Seguin that looked like a bad contract. And the first year of Mason Marchment looked like a really bad signing by Jim Nill. Fast forward 2 years later, both have been studs. And why have they been studs? Because of Matt Duchene. And so that's where it starts and ends with the Stars. He's the Stars' best player. I don't know what's happening with him, but he seems to be getting younger. He loves playing here in Dallas. His family loves being here in Dallas. After the season, he was an unrestricted free agent, but in the post-season interview, Connor, he kept saying, we have to get better. We need to do this. We need to be better in these aspects. He was coming back all along. So he's found a home here. He feels comfortable here. And specifically, the chemistry on that line is terrific. They've been together now for a season and a quarter, so they have familiarity. Seguin and Duchesne have a terrific personal relationship. Mason Marchment has opened up space for Seguin and Duchesne with his size and his ability to get to the front of the net. So that has been Dallas's top line. And then you focus on what you thought was going to be the top line in Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston moving from the third line up to the first. Now, the key here is Jason Robertson and the injury that wasn't talked about during the Western Conference Finals, had offseason surgery, came back basically for the regular season, didn't play in any preseason games. So you wonder, is he still getting his legs under? It was a tough injury that he had to get surgery on. And then Rope Hintz is fascinating as well, because sometimes he's the most dominant player on the ice, and then other games he's just a player. And he signed a long-term contract, so you need a little bit more consistency out of him. Wyatt Johnston is starting to play good. Wyatt Johnston was hitting a lot of posts, and you just knew it was coming. And it was coming. And last year, you have to look at the statistics. Wyatt Johnston, post-January 1st, was one of the tops in the NHL. Right. So you're hoping this year that Wyatt Johnston, just like Robertson, can get things going. Like I said, they had a good night the other night in Colorado, and hopefully they can do it again against Winnipeg.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on the Four Nations. I do want to ask about that and which Dallas Stars players are maybe going to be representing their countries at that tournament. But before we do that, you bring up Wyatt Johnston. I know Logan Stankoven, another young player who's been playing a big role with the Dallas Stars late last season and early this year. Thomas Harley, another young player making a big impact for Dallas. Here in Winnipeg, the Dallas Stars are kind of the model of, bringing in young players and having them make a big impact right away. What can you say about those three players specifically, Johnston, Stankoven, and Harley, and what their seasons are like so far this year? Because like you said, Johnston maybe on that top line struggling a little bit, Stankoven not on the top two lines, behind that Duchesne line, and then Thomas Harley, obviously top four, playing a big minutes for the Dallas Stars. What can you say about those three?
Yeah, the Stars have done a nice job in the last couple of years as far as development and quick development. When, the first thing I noticed is Wyatt Johnston jumping from juniors straight up, never went down.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of fascinating. Thomas Harley did have to sit in the American Hockey League, and it was the best thing that happened to him. He matured both on and off the ice, and he's become probably the Stars' second best defenseman. He's terrific. And Logan Stankoven didn't last long in the AHL and came up. So I would say those three, the speed in which they came through the ranks is most impressive. Logan Stankoven, to me, is kind of like a modern day Brendan Gallagher, in that, he has the same size as Gallagher, and like Gallagher, he's not afraid to get dirty in front of the net. So he's just one of those guys that's kind of a pain in the neck. The other thing that he does is he's a terrific back checker, and that's something the Jets, probably have to be a little concerned about. If he plays today, is like the back checking ability, because he's so quick. And the same thing with Johnston. They don't give up on the puck. If the puck's leaving the zone, they're chasing after the puck. So with Harley, really good offensively, we're still seeing the defensive side kind of come around. I would say he's a good defenseman. I certainly wouldn't call him necessarily that great defensively, but he's getting better, and we have to understand, these guys take time. The other one that we didn't mention, that the question is, should we send him back down to the AHL, is the reigning AHL MVP and Maverick Bourque.
Yes.
Came up, a lot of expectations, started on that third line with Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven. And you thought, because Stankoven and Maverick Bourque had such good chemistry with the Texas Stars last year, maybe being reunited at the NHL level would pay dividends. It just hasn't. You'll see a couple good games, but then he just won't be there. Friday night played on the fourth line, so we'll see what happens there.
Gavin Spittle here with us from 105.3 The Fan and the Spits and Suds podcast. You mentioned the Four Nations face-off earlier on. I do want to ask, I mean, obviously Roope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen going to play a massive role for Finland, Esa Lindell as well for Finland. But Lyss Houde, who was just on the show with us, we've got our Team USA picks coming up. Jason Robertson made our Team USA as a fourth line player, which, I mean, does get a little bit of controversy there given how his start to the season has gone. Who are some of those players for the Dallas Stars? I know Ottinger's a lock, essentially a lock to make Team USA as well, but who are some of those players that are maybe on the bubble, and where do you think that they maybe do or don't slide into their Four Nations rosters?
I think Jason Robertson would be a terrific addition to Team USA. I think Jason Robertson is adaptable as a fourth line player. I love his hustle. The puck seems to find him, and he is getting better. So I think that's kind of a wild card. I think Ottinger maybe going into the year was a wild card, but he's been absolutely terrific this year after signing that big deal. So I would certainly say Jake Ottinger, and then the Finns come. Miro, Esa, I mean, just absolutely terrific. So I think those are the guys that are going to be on the team. I think maybe if you did this in a couple of years, maybe Thomas Harley with his development, but not yet. And then you have Thomas Harley maybe playing for Canada and not USA, depending on how that goes. So I think you're absolutely right, and you're spot on. And I would not be surprised if Jason Robertson was left off the team, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the team.
Yeah, it's kind of that debate of, do you take the large sample size of an entire player's career, or the 22 game sample size of how they're playing right now? And all the Finns are going to make that team. Those are three of the best players on the Finnish team as well. But it's really that question mark. And then Wyatt Johnston, I saw, maybe a guy before the season that had a little more hype if he, ascended even further off of what he did last year. But it looks like he probably won't make the team.
Yeah, I don't think he will. And the same will be, watching Hockey Night in Canada last night, Matt Duchene wasn't even mentioned.
Right.
And, I understand it. I get it. And Matt Duchene is a well-traveled man. But you just can't deny what he's been able to do in Dallas. So maybe a team would pick Wyatt Johnston even over Matt Duchene for, he's a really good two-way player, and he comes up big in big spots. So, but that would to me be a wild card for me. I just see I see Roope Hintz, Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, and Jake Ottinger for the Stars.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. That's going to be such a fun tournament to watch. I mean, Canada, USA. Yeah. Finally.
And the fact, Connor, that we're talking about this and have talked about this is so, kudos to the NHL, kudos to everyone involved, because we have turned a regular all-star game, which was tough to pay attention to something that not only do the fans really care about, but the players are amped about it. And that's the biggest thing. So it's pretty awesome to see. My only fear is injury, but that's going to happen with any kind of world competition. They're going full speed, but at the same time, what a spotlight the NHL has put on themselves.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going, I'm really going to miss the All-Star game this year when watching Canada, USA go toe-to-toe, right? And watch McDavid and Crosby on the same line with McKinnon or something like that. So that's going to be super, super fun. I wanted to ask this question, and it's maybe a little obscure, but last time I was on your podcast was the day before the Super Saturday here in Winnipeg. So the Jets were taking on the Stars. Obviously, that's why you had me on to preview that game. And then the Bombers were taking on the Riders in the CFL West Final here in Winnipeg. So it was a Super Saturday, tons of sports going on in Dallas. And, I'm a 49ers fan, so I love bringing this up. But, the 49ers haven't been great either. But anyways, Cowboys, maybe a bit of a rougher year. Dak Prescott hurt on IR there. Do you maybe see a little bit more buzz around the Stars when the Cowboys aren't as good? The Stars have been the class of maybe the NHL, the Western Conference over the last couple years, especially in the regular season, Western Conference Finals last year, like you said. Do maybe people give up on the football team a little bit and have a little more interest in the hockey team when one team is so good and one team is having a disappointing year?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of interest And I have witnessed this Dallas Stars team talked about more this year than in years past. And I
Mhm.
don't know if there's a correlation to the Cowboys or the Rangers had an offseason after winning the World
Right.
Series. Mavs are a little bit down right now, as much as it is the winning ways of the Stars. We love our winners here in Dallas Fort Worth. So I think, they do a really good job as far as in-game presentation. People love going to the games. Most of the arena is sold out.
Mhm.
So that's terrific. I mean, it's awesome to see. And, we kind of have to look back at ownership. It wasn't too long ago that this Stars franchise was bankrupt and hanging on. And Tom Gallardi's done a really nice job as far as opening up his wallet and allowing Jim Nill to spend the money when it's necessary and to pick up the needed parts. So, yeah, a lot of talk. There will be a lot of eyes with the Cowboys not playing today on the Stars against
Yes.
Winnipeg. And I absolutely love afternoon tilts.
Yes, yes. Sunday afternoon tilts, especially. I mean, yeah, it does suck to be right in the middle of NFL Sunday, but like you said, the Cowboys aren't playing, so there's no debate of which one to go to. I mean, the Cowboys are the biggest team in the NFL, so I don't think there'd be a debate anyways, but it is nice to see in maybe a non-traditional hockey market in Dallas them thriving so well, and obviously winning plays a big part in that. What are you expecting from today's game? I mean, the Jets coming in have only won 3 out of their last 8 games, lost 3 out of their last 4, had a big injury in Dylan Sandberg last week. So Decor's a little banged up. The Jets aren't playing their best. They're wrapping up a 6-game road trip today, and they've looked fatigued over these last couple games. Where are the Stars at, and what are you expecting to see from them today in Sunday's game starting at 3:30 Central?
Yeah, we mentioned that big win against Colorado, and they look at
Right.
this as another division rival, somewhat above them, that they have to. So it's a 4-point swing game, and that's important. And they didn't get that in Winnipeg. So a couple things I expect. I expect Pete DeBoer has talked to his team as far as getting out of the zone quickly. They did that against Colorado the other night. They struggled against Winnipeg. That first period, they were doing everything to get off the ice. And that was the Stars' basic offense, was just flip it out of the zone. So they
Mhm.
can't allow that to happen today. The other thing, I do expect a little bit ramped up physicality, and the Stars to put some pressure on the Winnipeg defensemen. And I know it's a big game for Jake Ottinger. Jake is a very quiet, soft-spoken person, but he uses these games to fire himself up. He loves playing in Minnesota because he's from Minnesota. He went to Boston University, so he loves playing in Boston, and he loves playing against Connor Hellebuck. And
Yeah,
going up against Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg, that just did not go well. So it'll
right.
be interesting, to see. I know he'll be fired up about this. And when Dallas is allowed, basically to move forward in straight lines. I'll tell you this real quick, is that
Mhm.
2
Yeah.
power play goals the other night. This was one of the worst power plays in the NHL this season. But one of the things they did, actually 2 things, was movement on their power play. You saw a lot of stagnation in the past, so they moved on the power play. And the other thing was the crisp passing and the quick shot. So the
Mhm.
Stars have a tendency to find that perfect pass. On Friday night, it was pass shoot. And I've seen them throw a lot more softer shots on net, hoping to get a rebound. That's how they got their first goal on Grubauer the other night. It was a
Mhm.
soft shot, but it happened to go, end over end, kind of fooled him. He let up a big rebound and Marchman over to Sagan for the one-timer. So I expect them to try their best to put as many shots on Hellebuck as possible to kind of try to force that chaos in front of the net and collect some rebounds.
Yeah, the Jets power play has skyrocketed up to first in the NHL as well. And those 3 things that you mentioned are 3 things that they've adopted this year as well. The stagnation, the standing still on the power play was something that all these people here in the chat, the fan base were, kind of growing tiresome of. It became a multi-year thing where they weren't moving too much in the power play. Tons of movement this year, shooting the puck a lot, not afraid to shoot the puck, because good things happen when you shoot the puck on the power
Yeah.
play and you can bang away at the rebounds. How much do you okay? I'm sure if you asked him, he would not give it any airtime. But do you think Jake Ottinger heard those US backup chants in Winnipeg and maybe that's motivating him a little bit today?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he probably also knows that he's going to be the backup too.
Yeah, right. That's the thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
So
know, it's kind of obvious, and I think he's okay with that. By the way, Connor Hellebuck with a nice Texas tie, playing for the Odessa Jackalopes back in the
nice.
NAHL. So we in Texas try to kind of root for him when he's not playing against
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jake's one of those guys where going up against Tampa and Andre Vasilevsky was important to him.
Mhm.
And the same, goes against Connor Hellebuck. He tries to rise to the occasion because he wants to be among the best in the league. And right now, I think it's very fair to say that he's top 5, top 6 in the league.
Yeah.
And he's shown terrific improvement over last year. Maybe he was battling an injury, but at the same time, he's had an amazing bounce back year. So yeah, he's up for it. And kudos and stick tap to Winnipeg. Smart fans. I like that.
Yes. The fans have been super creative with the chants this year. It's been great. And I want to highlight this question from Comet in our chat room. How much do the Stars miss Joe Pavelski this year? Obviously retiring in the offseason. He had an injury that he came back from in the playoffs there. Wasn't really himself, or maybe played through the injury. But how much do the Stars miss maybe that veteran leadership and the on-ice impact, of course, as well?
Well, I think Comet gets the question of the day because that is a terrific question, and they do miss him. And Duchesne's had to step up as a leader. Jamie Benn's more of a quiet leader as the captain. But a couple of things. One of the things that I loved about the power play the other night was I felt as though they were running the power play as if Joe Pavelski was still part of it and looking for that high tip. And the thing about it is that Joe Pavelski, I think, was one of the best at stick tips in NHL history. So he was so terrific on the power play. So miss him on the ice. And if you look at just from a point production standpoint last year, he finished top 5 with the Stars. He was terrific. Just the playoffs caught up to him. At the same time, the room. Joe Pavelski's one of those guys. A terrific article I remember reading where it was 11 p.m. at night, and he got a tip that one of the players was kind of confidence down, and he said, "Give me his room number," and he sat with him for an hour. And then that player talked about another player, and Joe Pavelski then went to that player's room and talked to him for another time and didn't get to bed till 1 and 2 in the morning. That's the leadership that he brought to the room. So yeah, he's certainly missed just a terrific signing, and he was wonderful here in Dallas. And I think the power play kind of struggled without Joe Pavelski. So it's certainly taken some time to get back. And we can also look at that first line and question, like, okay, how good was Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson in the past due to Joe Pavelski? The same way we're saying about Duchesne with Sagan and Marchment.
Yes, absolutely. Gavin, this has been an absolute pleasure. The Jets and the Stars, after today's game, are going to take each other on 2 more times this year. So hopefully we can do this again. Thank you so much for joining WST Sunday Live. And maybe on the way out, let people know where they can find maybe a post-game reaction from today's game if people want a Stars perspective, maybe if the Jets lose or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I got to pump Connor's tires. He's terrific. So please watch and support this program. Absolutely love hanging on Spits and Suds. Yeah, we started this podcast 3 or 4 years ago, and it's amazing how much it's grown. Love the Stars fan. So it's on Odyssey or wherever you can find your favorite podcast. It's called Spits and Suds. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at GJ Spittle. And thank you so much for having me. Anytime you guys want me for a Stars preview, count me in.
Let's do it. Okay, well, thank you so much. And everyone here with us live on YouTube, stick around. Lyss, Houde, and I's Team USA roster predictions are coming out on the WST channel, previewing in 1 minute. It's 10:24. It's coming out at 10:25, so stick around. As for this edition of WST Sunday Live, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this extended edition. We went over almost an hour and a half. Enjoy the game today between Jets and Stars. Should be a great tilt between 2 Central Division rivals as the Jets wrap up their long road trip. Thanks for watching WST Sunday Live. We'll see you next Sunday. Have a great day, everyone.